You're listening to Let's Talk episode 70, brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network. Howdy all, Father Corey Stika. Welcome to Let's Talk, our SQPN community podcast. Glad you could join us. We've got a couple returning panelists again. First, Noelle's here again without her husband, Tom. How's it going, Noelle?
Hi, it's going well. Thank you.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
Ditched him this time, huh?
He's in the kitchen, I think, getting himself some food.
That's a good thing. Oh, you're making him cook. That's even better.
We had leftovers.
There you go. Hey, that works. And then Lisa's with us as well. How's it going, Lisa?
Hey, Father Corey, I'm kind of fangirling out because I'm a total fan of Noelle, so I love the show. I love the podcast, so I'm super psyched to be here today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you both are doing an awesome job with the history podcast. So really enjoying it. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
We're excited. We're almost at 6 months. A couple more episodes.
Wow.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
I have learned so much from you. And let me ask you, do you mutually do the research, or how does the research happen? Because, I mean, the amount of planning that goes into your show is incredible.
There's a lot. We do. It depends. You know, sometimes Tom does more of that on his own. Sometimes I do it. He's the writer, so he does the writing, and then I just kind of complain about what he writes. No. Only kidding. We hash through it together. Sometimes I say, a lot of times I think he'd say, you know, this doesn't sound like me. I did kind of rewrite it a little bit, but he's really the one who puts all the words together and does a lot of the work. He's really amazing and dedicated to it. So it's fun working with him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about something that is going to be on people's minds here real quick. And that's what do we do for our charities? How do we support our charities? Of course, I say it's going to be on our minds real quick because, of course, with the holiday season come up, you know, we want to help, especially charitable groups that help give people gifts with Christmas and so on. But especially after the holiday season comes tax season, and everybody's thinking, definitely, if I give money to charity, then I can give less money to the government, which for some of us is a good thing. We give enough, it seems like, as it is. But you know, the three of us all have different experiences when it comes to charitable work. Now, Noelle, you said that you work for one, or you work for a couple of them pretty much, don't you?
Right. Well, I run one because right after my husband and I think we shared the story before, right after we got married, actually before we got married, we live in sort of a rough neighborhood, and there was a shooting of a 15-year-old boy. And so after I said, I'm not going to live where this happened, I said, I'm going to use what I have if I'm going to live here, and what I have is Montessori training. So 6 months after we got married, Tom and I bought a building and formed a nonprofit and started a Montessori school. So we run that. So I do that part-time, full-time, if you will. I'm part-time in the school as a teacher, but you're always on when you're running it. You know, we wear all the hats for that, including the fundraising hat. And then I am the coordinator of pilgrimages out of Franciscan University. And so working there, that's also obviously a nonprofit as well. So right. I got a big one and a small one on my plate.
Sure. No, understand it completely. Of course, you know, as a priest, as a pastor of a parish, you know, we definitely have the same issues with nonprofits. And of course, SQPN, you know, working with SQPN both as chaplain and on the podcast, you know, that's very much a part of that as well. Now, Lisa, do you have any experience working with or for nonprofits? I think you do, don't you?
So I sort of failed at that, Father Corey. So I'll say I ran CatholicMom.com for many years, but I actually never incorporated as a nonprofit because I am not super great about asking people for money. And so we always kind of functioned in a way that I did not have to do that for our existence. And now in 2017, the website and our kind of accompanying projects were acquired by Holy Cross Family Ministries, which is an international nonprofit. Right. And they are actually now running Catholic Mom. And so now for the first time, we just had our second annual Day of Giving. And I still am I'm on a learning curve for that. But just as as a Catholic in the pew and as somebody who loves to support different efforts, I think this is such a big topic and it's really close to my heart.
Oh, absolutely. I wonder how much we really think about how charity works, nonprofits and these organizations that they're there to give and to serve, how much they really impact our daily lives. I mean, of course, we can think of parishes and we can think of charities like the Salvation Army and St. Vincent de Paul. We can think of international charities like Catholic Relief Services and things like that. But I think we see charities again, and the sense of charities as like nonprofits in our daily lives. Every day we're involved with, nonprofits. I mean, some examples either you can think of that you deal with.
Yeah, one that has been really close to my heart the last year or so is the Alzheimer's Foundation. I've mentioned in the past that my mom struggles with Parkinson's disease and has kind of some related dementia to that. And it was very interesting this weekend to see her in the memory care facility that she lives in. They actually had last Saturday was a walk for Alzheimer's. That was kind of a national event. And on the Thursday prior, the residents at her facility who could not go out and participate in the walk, they actually did something at the facility to kind of bring awareness. And I was just very touched by the fact that these people who are kind of struggling with this themselves, that they would, take the effort and understand, the importance of not just raising funds for research, but also just, how charities can get information out to people. And the number of times each day that I consult, Parkinson's related websites and learning about my mom's care, it just, none of that would be there. And it's all freely provided because of people who, give to those particular charities.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no, in Steubenville, it's really interesting. Of course, we're sort of in the upper Appalachia, Rust Belt area, heavily impacted by the collapse of the steel industry in the 70s and still struggling to recover. A lot of opioid issues here. And so it's really interesting because there's a lot of people who are doing a lot of work. So you're talking sort of larger nonprofits, national, but in Steubenville, we have those, but there are ministries to people to help feed them. We have something called the Friendship House. We have ministries to youth to give them something to do after school and to give them classes and things that they're just not learning at home because they have broken families. We have a nonprofit that is just trying to revitalize cities through art and bringing gatherings of people together and different activities and things to be. So it's funny because in Steubenville, it feels like you throw a stone and you're hitting a nonprofit, but so many people just doing little things without a lot of money themselves, but putting their gifts and talents on the line and trusting that the Lord will send the money so that they can serve in some little way the people who are here.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Lisa kind of hinted at what the one big difficulty for a lot of nonprofits, and that's giving, asking for the money, getting the money.
Ask.
It's for me as a pastor, it's something I'm dealing with right now. We, as like many Catholic parishes, we don't bring in enough money, that is for what we want to do. Now, obviously, the fact that I am talking to you on a computer on the internet says that we can at least keep the lights on. We can at least keep the internet going. It's -2 outside, -2 Fahrenheit outside. So we can keep the heat on. We can keep the basics going. But there's so much more that I know I would love to do as pastor, and so many other pastors would love to do, and so many other nonprofits. Again, like you mentioned, those little ones, you know, they do what they can, and they do a lot with the money, but oftentimes they can't do what they want to do. You know, there's so much more they want to do. You know, and that's why it's so important. But on the other hand, this is my firm belief, and the reason why the federal government in the United States and many other countries did as well, set up nonprofit systems. Nonprofits can do so much more things more efficiently than government ever can.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's really true. And it's also something for us to remember that when we're talking about that nothing is free. I mean, the lights at our parish do not just come on because, you know, God said, oh, let there be light. And then there's always light in the parish. I mean, he did say that, and I know he provides, but I was thinking about this topic, Father Corey, because my pastor, we belong to a parish here in Los Angeles, and we just joined there a few years ago. And one of the things that we have a relatively new pastor, he's only been here for a year, but he tends to, when there's a specific need, he actually puts that out to the community and says, you know, here's XYZ thing that we're trying to do that's over and above normal stewardship. And this most recent example that made me think of this idea was that he's trying to replace our nativity scene, which is like the large nativity scene that would be on the altar. And I noticed the last few Christmas that our nativity scene at our parish was very sad. We only had 2 wise men, and we had 1 cow and no sheep. And I mean, we did have Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, so that was good. But there were, you know, it was a very small thing. And he actually put it out in our bulletin the last 2 weeks that he is wanting to order a new nativity scene, and, you know, if people wanted to donate and give specifically to that gift. And as a parishioner, I really liked getting that message from him that said, here's a specific need, you know, this is the amount that we would spend on this, and I'm inviting you to, you know, to give in this way, and that no gift is too small. And I think that's really great, because now, you know, when we give to that, and when we see that up on the altar, you know, that's a little part of our family that's up there, and a little sense of kind of that place is our home. And it's also, you know, something that will be seen by people who come and visit our parish. I think Christmas is probably one of the times when a lot of people, you know, come to Mass that never come for the rest of the year. And when they look at that, you know, that'll be a way of reminding them of the sacred. So I think it's super awkward, but then at the same time, it's like, if we recognize that there's no gift that's too small, and that things need to get done, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that, I mean, that obviously is the best way to get things done in nonprofits, charities, and so on, is just flat out asking. It does get a little annoying sometimes when you have charities where it seems like you send them $10 and they send you $20 worth of send us more money, admittedly, but
I actually, like, when I have that, I actually contact the organizations and ask them to please stop sending me stuff so that we don't spend the money on the mail. And I'll tell you, one of my pet peeves, I guess maybe I shouldn't call them out, but there's an organization that serves older adults, and they have a membership. And when their ask comes for the membership, it looks like a bill.
Oh,
and
sure.
I've been on a big campaign against that, because I think it's, you know, kind of in a way like trying to trick people into supporting that organization. So I think we have to be upfront about it. But I mean, Noelle, when you guys ask, like, for the preschool, do you ever do the thing where you say, so for, you know, if you donate like $25, then it could get XYZ, we could buy art supplies or whatever? Like, do you ever connect it to specific things?
We do. So we do it for specific things that we need. So, for example, recently we had to we had an undisclosed issue when we bought the building, which turned out to be a water line that they identified as lead, and they had to fix it. And they had been trying to get the former owner to do it, and they hadn't done it, and they didn't disclose it to us. So we found out afterwards, oh, we have this $3,000 to $4,000 thing we have to fix. right? So we put that out there as like, hey, we have this bill now. And we've had other things. So we try to do specific projects when we're asking like that. We've luckily had some great donors who have really supported us, and they one of the most amazing fundraising for us has been those donors going out and running Facebook giving birthday fundraisers for us. And we have just been humbled by the people who have chosen to make us their birthday fundraiser. And that's just so special when people have all these choices and they choose to support you like that.
And can I ask, do you actually get those funds? I mean, do they come to you?
We do, right.
Okay.
So when you do a birthday fundraiser, you choose your charity, and we're registered through Facebook. So they choose Hilltop Children's House as their charity, and then the money, it doesn't go to them at all. Facebook collects it, and we actually get, Facebook is great because they give 100% to the charity.
Oh, wow.
Unlike PayPal, when people pay us through PayPal, PayPal takes a percentage, but Facebook doesn't. They make the money because they hold it until the 25th of the month, so they get all the interest while they're holding it.
Oh,
but
sure.
then you get all of it, and so we love people who give us through Facebook.
That's really good to know too, because I think I've seen those for my friends, and I always wonder, like, if I throw $1 or $2 in there, like, is that gonna like do anything? But it sounds like cumulatively it really can.
It does, yeah, and it goes straight. Yeah, like I said, they'll hold it and they'll disperse it out on like the 25th. They actually, I think, do twice a month. They'll disperse it out twice a month, in one lump for everything that's been collected. But it all goes straight to the charity, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, that is great to know, because you'd hear rumors of, oh, well, they take a percentage or they do this. It's like, and to know that no, they're every penny they send on, they send on. And it doesn't seem like much if, okay, you have to wait 2 weeks from the end of the appeal, the birthday gift appeal, to actually receiving the money. But they make a bit of interest off that. That's fine. I mean, if it allows them to do it, why not?
Hey, Father Corey, I've been really curious about, and maybe you were going to bring this up, but as a pastor, I mean, with everything that's been happening in the church for the last, few years, all the kind of difficulties that we face, do you notice like a connection between when there are spikes in the negative news about the church and giving levels in the church?
I don't see that as much here personally. At least I don't think it doesn't seem like it to me. Again, being out in a more rural area, a little more isolated from a lot of that's going on. I see more local issues. Now, that being said, a couple of years ago, we were in the middle, our diocese was in the middle of lawsuits due to the abuse scandals and all that. And I know that did affect giving, especially to the diocese, but it also did to the parish a little bit. People want to try to figure out the way, well, how can I give the parish where some of the money doesn't go to the diocese? And the direct answer is most dioceses, you can't. Right. I mean, you really can't. Short of, there's little tricks you can do where the parish doesn't actually get the money, but then you don't get the credit for the tax exemption. So it's or tax deductible donation. So it works out either way, but the diocese, they get their money, and then that is a responsibility for us as Catholics, even in the middle of the lawsuits, is to support the diocese as much as the parish. But what I see more for like giving spikes or donations dropping, or more, how do people think about what's going on in the parish? With
you give a bad homily, you get
not quite to that micro level.
I'm teasing you.
Yeah. Well, there may be. I mean, it might not be a coincidence that the basket is passed after the homily, but more like, well, I don't like what Father did, or I don't like what Father's doing here, or I don't like this problem that occurred, or things like that.
I'm actually kind of heartened by that answer, because I guess I spend like way too much time on Catholic Twitter, but I've had this like fear over the last few years that with the level of vitriol sometimes that we experience on sort of these insider forums where we talk about all these issues within the church. And I know, I mean, because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the work of Catholic Charities. I've seen the work of Catholic Relief Services. I've been in the countries where, for example, Rice Bowl beneficiaries, I've met people who've been educated and housed and had all kinds of services because of those quarters that we drop in our rice bowls. I know those things work, and it just hurts my heart to think that anybody would lose confidence in, giving to the church because of what's happened. It's really rough. And yet, we're called to be good stewards of the funds that our families have too. So
yeah, same here. I've been the same thing. When we went to Israel as part of our seminary training, we spent one day where we were with Catholic Relief Services, and they showed us some projects, including, one thing I kind of enjoyed, and I know they purposely put me on this. They split us into two groups. And one group, the group I was on, we went to a farming area where they actually had like a farming extension office, which if you're in a farm area, you know what the extension office is. That's where it's like government coordination for farming and working like with the universities that are doing things and with farming and all that. And so they had basically that there where this group was working with these farmers to help develop, more sustainable farming practices, build houses, things like that. And it was, interesting. It was great to see that, and especially be able to say, okay, this is where Catholic Relief Service money goes to. We hear the scandals, and we hear the groups that are fighting against some of the problems. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of charities have things that are problematic at times. Now you have to decide whether or not the good they do outweighs those problems, or if those problems are severe enough not to give. And that's the same with parishes. That's the same with dioceses. That's the same with your local food bank, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the challenge when it comes to this kind of giving is don't expect these organizations to be perfect, because guess what? They're not.
They're run by humans. Okay. I was thinking about, our family participates in Unbound, it's an organization that was formerly known as CFCA, the Christian Foundation for Children and Aging. Okay. And it's a sponsorship organization, and we sponsor a child in the Philippines and an older woman in India. And I've had the great blessing with both of our sponsored friends to actually go to their homes and meet them and spend time in their communities. And it's really interesting with Unbound because people ask me this. So we write letters back and forth. And when I visited with both of them, one of the things that they show you is an accounting of where, how the funds that you give to that particular person are being used and withdrawn for their purposes. So I think there's all these tools now in giving to charities that enable us to kind of check, how responsible a charity is. And I would think, Noelle, that for you, like you're on the other end of that, you have to kind of navigate putting all that information out there. How's that?
Well, we just finished our first year basically, and are wrapping up the accounting for it. So we haven't put anything out yet as far as that goes, but our budget is obviously very, very lean. We're brand new and just getting started and building. So it's sort of interesting because we're building all of last year was fundraising for our building and then fundraising to buy materials, and so it was a very atypical year to begin with. But we do try to stay so for example, last year we had a fundraiser, a Mardi Gras party, and we actually made money our very first year doing it. So that was tremendously exciting that we actually made some money. And we put out a letter afterwards and pictures showing everyone, here's all the materials that we were able to buy for the children through the money we raised for the fundraiser. So we try to document it on our Facebook page, with pictures, what the children are doing and what materials or whatever we were able to purchase through the generosity of our donors, so that they can, actually physically see what those things are. So we haven't put out a letter per se or a listing but we do try to be very timely on Facebook with pictures and thank yous to people, so they can really concretely see what their money has gone towards.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's fantastic. I think one of the best things a charity can do, again, whether it is a parish or a school or some other, nonprofit, is have that transparency where they can say, here's where the money goes. And again, that's something I'm trying to do here with our parishes. Now that I've got a bookkeeper, or had a bookkeeper, unfortunately she had to resign for personal reasons, but had a bookkeeper who could go through our books and get them cleaned up and get them organized so I can understand what's going on. That helps so much for that transparency to then go to the parishioners and say, here we go, here's the state of our parish,
So can I ask you this sort of like a little insider question? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, everybody has been sitting in mass and had the basket passed in front of them. And then we see that the ushers, the basket is taken forward and the ushers then collect it. And in twos, they usually take it someplace. But what happens from there in the average parish? Like, there's like accounting, right, to kind of make sure that there's double supervision.
I mean, here's kind of ideal is that the money, when it's brought forward at mass, it's put somewhere where it's secure, whether it is like right after the collection. The ideal is like right after the collection, it's taken to, after the money's collected, it's put in a sealed bag. The sealed bag is put in a drop safe, and it's, and it's left alone. That this idea of bringing, I know the symbolism, but it's bad accounting practice to bring the money up and put it in front of the altar, or
they don't do that at my parish. Yeah,
we shouldn't be doing. Well, we're not supposed to be doing that liturgically, anyways. But it's also bad because there's too many hands that are touching the money. But then that on whatever day, whether it's that Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, someone who did not collect the money and someone who is not the bookkeeper and get intos will count the money and make up the deposit and all that. And then the bookkeeper will get the deposit slip, but the money will already just go to the bank, or, someone will take it to the bank, but there's a lot of money handling things that should happen, because we actually, about a year and a half ago, we had a gentleman who's a CPA, and he does a lot of the best practices for nonprofits. He came and talked to our diocese, and he talked about that, where it's like, where the person who collects the money should not count the money. The person who counts the money should not be the bookkeeper. The bookkeeper should not be able to sign checks. The pastor who signs checks should not be able to make checks, except in, extreme emergencies, things like that. So there should be a delineation of roles so that the money is accounted for, and no one person can, snag grab a $20 or $100 bill out of the collection as it goes by type of deal.
But that's how you can see that actually, I mean, our participation matters as parishioners, like somebody stepping up and volunteering to be, one of the people who's involved in that. It's important. It matters that we have like accountability for this stuff. And, it's probably a couple of hours a week. And, I'm sure that you have to vet everybody that's involved in that process. Oh,
absolutely. A minimum, of course, again, in a smaller parish, it's not as big an issue, but I would, if I was in a larger parish where I really didn't know the people, I would expect them to run through a background check at a minimum.
Yeah.
If right. not the ushers, no, not so worried about that. But if you're going to count the money, you got to go through a background check. If you're an employee, you're definitely going to go through a background check, because that's a part of being an employee. That's just part of the process. Things like that. Just kind of as we go through, there's steps that need to be done as part of this process to ensure that the money is counted well, because we want to be good stewards. There's that word, steward. You hear that a lot at church. Well, this is part of it, being good stewards of the money that is given to us, to ensure that it's properly accounted for, or it's properly spent, that what state the parish is in, where the money is going and how it's being spent and things like that.
So this is turning into Lisa's podcast about all the questions that I ever wanted answered. Here's the other question that I have, because because our family uses, we do our giving electronically. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've struggled with ever since we started doing that is this issue of the basket coming in front of me and sitting there and kind of blankly staring at it. Like, should I drop an empty envelope in there? Like our parish doesn't provide, some parishes have like a card that you can put in. But I would think that my pastor would actually prefer that I give electronically because if I'm not there, my donation is. But because I travel a lot. What's your thought on that?
See, I'm all for the electronic giving. I am all for the electronic giving. I wish we could get all our parishioners to go electronic giving and just stop the collection basket at Mass. I really do. It just, first of all, it makes things so much simpler. Just like, Noel, you were talking about Facebook where the money just kind of shows up. They send you the money. Well, that's the same thing with electronic giving. On the date that the person picked, hey, we've got a deposit into our checking account. Right. So just don't have to worry about it. It just shows up, and then in a month we get a statement from the organization, the company that runs the actual transactions, showing who gave how much. So that helps with our tracking as well, as far as keeping track of who gave what. And my opinion is, I know other people who are worried about, well, what if other parishioners don't see me putting money in the basket?
Yes.
I understand it's a concern. However, my experience as a pastor is most parishioners don't care what other people give. They really aren't looking. They really, yes, everybody's got, oh yeah, but when I grew up, there was this one little old lady. Well, yeah, because she was a nosy old lady who wanted to know what everybody gave. You can't do anything about that.
Yeah. Well, do you guys have like a special accommodation for that at your church? Like for people who give electronically?
For doing electronic giving?
Yeah.
We don't actually have electronic giving set up at our parish, so that's not something, as far as I know, so that's not something that we can participate in, unfortunately. But I think Father's right. I used to be a business manager at a parish, and I actually had to implement a lot of those procedures that Father was talking about because this parish hadn't done a lot of that. And they had their petty cash in a unlocked fire safe drawer in the front of a accordion file, like like it was crazy. And I was like, all right, we need to make some changes. And there was a lot of resistance, and people who thought that it was because they didn't trust them, and it's like, no, because we have a responsibility to the parishioners to see that we're taking really good care of their money. But also we didn't have electronic giving when I started, and that was put in later, but it really does increase the giving when you do electronic giving as well, which is really nice. They have, like Father's saying, you have that specific date and it comes out, and you have much more predictable flow of income through the electronic giving. So there are so many pluses to it for a parish to be using that, or any nonprofit really,
right,
getting donations, to have that steady flow of income coming in that way. So but no, our parish doesn't use it.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of nonprofits are pushing towards the electronic, where you can go to their website and sign up for it, or again, something like through Facebook or other charitable means, something they're trying to move people that direction because it's so much more convenient. It's so much easier for the people. It's much easier to count for on the part of the nonprofit. And of course it does. Someone that might be a little more willing to give, say, $25 a month instead of $20 a month, if they just have to click a button and fill in their credit card information versus actually writing out a check every month.
Right. I know I do that, right? At this point, it's funny how you used to doing it all the time. Now at this point, in order to find my checkbook, find a pen, whatever, by the time if I have to go through all those steps, it's much less likely that check's actually going to be written in the end than if I just have set it up remotely to happen automatically. So I find myself doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And, this is a good time to throw in a little pitch here. I'll talk more about it later. But of course, SQPN is a nonprofit. We are 501c3. Donations are tax deductible. And we do have Patreon as your online every month giving. So, but other organizations do that as well. It very much a good thing. Now, for either of you, if someone approaches you about a new nonprofit or a nonprofit you're not familiar with for money, whether it is through a appeal at the parish or a mailing or an email or something like that, are there any particular tools that you might look at to see if this nonprofit is worth contributing to? I know I'm kind of throwing one out there at you.
I'll let Noelle go first.
Oh my. I don't know about a new nonprofit.
I don't mean new as in like the new organization, but a nonprofit that you're unfamiliar with.
Unfamiliar with? Yeah, I mean, probably it would start with just their website and taking a look at what I'm seeing there. You might do a Google search to see if you can find any news information. So, I go to the web and see what I could find there about it. And then most of mine, I would say, goes with either an organization I've had some experience with or friends of mine have had experience with and how they talk about it. So I personally try to stay fairly local for my, so it depends if somebody's telling me about something that's worthy and I know them and I trust them, so word of mouth and then using the internet if it's something that would be on the internet back in from their website, to do a little bit of research. But
I always go to Charity Navigator. That's kind of like my go-to. And at least to see that somebody is registered. And oftentimes there are rankings there and reviews and things like that you can find. But I think because of having been, working on the website for so many years, I get so many requests. And I'll tell you, this probably is not the answer that you were looking for, but along with doing my research, one thing that I've told myself I have to do is I really have to talk with my husband, because, we're a married couple and oftentimes I'll think, well, it's not, and I'm not talking about for every little dollar that I give or whatever, but for, gifts of a particular size, it's important to me now that I have a conversation with them about it. And it's bad that I didn't always do that, but I think I've made it a priority recently because I do know that, we're a team and that, our family does this together. So I think that's important.
I agree. I agree with that. Tom and I have probably more regular than he'd like conversations about money, but we run a nonprofit. And we don't get paid ourselves for that, so our budget is tight.
Yeah.
And those conversations are constantly important, and we don't have a lot of money that we can give charitably, but we try to talk about it and give what we can to help out.
Oh yeah,
so,
that's absolutely the case. That's great. No, I mean it's that's something I think couples should talk about. And unfortunately, I can think of families I know where that doesn't happen, where one person gives, the other person would, if they had their way, would not give anything at all to anything. They don't have the understanding of the need to give. And that's something that we as Catholics need to recognize, kind of bringing to the spiritual aspect of charitable giving. We as Catholics are called to be generous with our resources, with what God has given us, and our money is a resource. It's a gift from God that we have the money that we have. And some of us, we don't have a lot of money. We would love to give more, or we'd love to be involved more, but we just don't have the money for it. And but we as Catholics, we have to be willing to give a percentage. And I always love the idea of of the classic tithe, the 10%. But to do that, how do you balance that? Where do we give the 10% all to our parish? Well, if you've got a good parish you really want to support, sure, there's nothing wrong with that. Other people, I know a guideline you often will hear is, 5% to your parish, 5% to other charities, or 5% to your parish and diocese and 5% to other charities. So you're still giving 10%, but you're giving to more than just your local parish. You're giving to Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Extension, which is, one charity that supports a lot of the really rural areas. I've mentioned, matter of fact, last week, my pick was Catholic Extension because we get support from them, things like that. So it's as Catholics, definitely giving is something that we need to do. And that is what stewardship is about, being stewards of our money, not just the parish being stewards of the money, but us being stewards of the money that we have as well.
Right. So I mentioned when we were talking before that I had done a little bit of research, but about the topic. But what I was doing is looking up a talk that I heard last year in Lent. So not this past Lent, but the Lent before, and I'm at Franciscan University. So Dr. Bergsma, Dr. John Bergsma, who's a biblical scholar, theologian at Franciscan, had given a talk of Lenten mission to the students, and his talk was on they had done a 3-part, so prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, and his talk was on almsgiving, and it was recorded, so I was listening to this talk, and just he was making the point about the connection between almsgiving and the covenant, and he made this really great point about how almsgiving is connected to Eucharist, and that there's this bond between the Eucharist giving food, in a sense, to the poor, us, to feed us spiritually, and almsgiving being a concrete act of mercy to the poor to feed them physically. And there is that connection. And he was saying that our obligation for almsgiving is connected to the mercy of God, that is a concrete representation of the mercy of God in the world. And I just thought it was so amazing and so beautiful the way that he put that, and really made it so strongly, not just like giving alms is a good thing to do, it's a nice thing to do, we really ought to help others, but bringing us right into that covenantal relationship with God through our alms, which you think about that with prayer and with fasting to a certain sense, right? But you don't necessarily think about that with almsgiving. And I just really love the way he put it. So
no, that's fantastic. That's awesome. That's you got to love it when they can make those connections. But it's true. Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving are works of mercy to God. That works that we give to God in our lives. So that's awesome.
No, it was great.
That's cool.
I really needed to hear that.
Yeah. Dr. Bergsma is awesome, though. I mean, he really is. He's so brilliant. He's one of those guys there that just brilliant professors there. So
yeah.
So anything else either you would like to share on this as we kind of wrap up this discussion?
Yeah, I was thinking about this idea that Giving Tuesday is coming up, which is interesting that there's all these like trendy things that are happening because they become like whatever. It's like it happens one time and then suddenly everybody's doing it. And I've already started getting email requests from some of the charities that we support to remember them on Giving Tuesday. But I wanted to say, like, if that's another great time to just remember SQPN. And to maybe, if you haven't given a gift in the past, that this, if you're listening to this podcast or others on our network, that, this is a time when we get ready to say thank you to God, that we, share some of what we have. So I like that particular aspect of Thanksgiving week a lot better than Black Friday.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. I forgot. That's one thing I did forget about is the Giving Tuesday, where it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Because, of course, you've got Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all this thing. Well, then, the one day where we can remember giving. That's great. Well, excellent. Great. Hope we gave you some things to think about for your own giving, your own generosity to charities and to helping support charities, whether it's your local parish or local community organizations, or again the big ones that we can think of. Yeah. Once again, I want to thank you for listening to Let's Talk. We really appreciate everyone who listens. We appreciate everyone who comments, who sends suggestions, who shares, who likes, who all that good stuff that we have. Really hope you do enjoy this show and all our SQPN community podcasts, because we enjoy putting them out there. We want people to join in the conversation, and so please do share our podcast if especially if you're enjoying what we have to say. Subscribe to our podcasts through your podcatcher if you're not already, whether it is Apple Podcasts or whatever it might be. All our different ways that you can get our shows, you can subscribe to them, even through Facebook and YouTube. So please do check those out. As I said earlier, as we mentioned, SQPN is a nonprofit. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and so any money given to us is tax deductible, and we do greatly appreciate it. We appreciate everyone who gives money to help keep our organization going, because like every organization, it does cost money to keep our shows going. Even if most of us who work on these shows, who speak on these shows, are doing it as volunteers, there's still expenses that SQPN has to meet to keep the shows going. And so we do have our Patreon campaign, which you can find at sqpn.com/give and click on the Patreon link. And if you become a Patreon patron, you can join at different levels, or each month you give us a certain amount, even as little as $1 a month. If that's all you feel you can afford, we greatly appreciate it. But at higher levels, we have gifts that we can give out and more. So please do take a look at that again at sqpn.com/give. This week, I'd like to thank, as we've been doing for a while, we do this because we do appreciate our patrons, but I would like to thank Sailing L, Amy Z, CM, Elaine K, and Jesse K. Thank you, and all of our Patreon patrons, for your support. And again, if you wish to join them in supporting us via Patreon, go to sqpn.com/give. So before we go on to the picks of the week, actually, we have some feedback. I've been negligent, unfortunately, in adding feedback, but I figured now would be a good time to add that. So we talked about All Saints, All Souls, and we had from Facebook. We have Steve Cottrell wrote, "As usual, I enjoyed this episode. I thought I'd share what our parish does during the month of November to remember our faithful departed. Every year, one of our parishioners prepares these 2 banners with the names of those who died in the last year. The banners hang prominently at the front of the church for the month of November. Here's a link to this year's banners post." So a great idea, good idea. Some way to remember parishioners. We had talked about doing a book of the dead, a book of our faithful departed, those that we love that have died. This is another great idea. So we'll add a link to that in our show notes of where you can see that, where as people come to church, they'd be able to see those who have died in the past year. So that's a great idea. I like that.
That's awesome.
So, well, now let's move on to our picks of the week. Lisa, do you have a pick for us this week?
I do. The pick that I have this week is actually a children's book. It's by the author Anthony DeStefano, and it comes from Sophia Institute Press. And the name of the book is The Seed Who Was Afraid to Be Planted. And this is the most delightful children's book about, it takes from the perspective of a little seed that's living very comfy and cozy in a drawer. What happens when the seed is pulled out of his comfort zone and then planted, and the story of what happens and how he grows into this beautiful tree that becomes, home for flowers and animals and birds and everything else. And it's really a great book about, not only does it reference like the different places in scripture where seeds are specifically mentioned, like the parable of the mustard seed, or the Gospel of John's reference to how a seed a grain of wheat has to die before it can flourish. It's just a really great book for reminding us that we all have a special mission, and that God creates us, even though we have to sometimes go through scary times of discernment for remarkable things in life. So it's called The Seed Who Was Afraid to Be Planted. Oh, excellent. That sounds very interesting. Sounds like a great choice. Noelle. It's wonderful.
Noelle, what would you like?
Well, I'm taking a note because it sounds like something I might want for my classroom.
There you go.
I think you would, Noelle.
We're actually talking about seeds and nuts and animals getting ready for the winter right now. So we've been doing lots of talking. I was like, ooh. Yeah. So my pick, as I mentioned, the talk that Dr. John Bergsma gave was taped, videoed from the university. They actually video a number of the talks that happen on campus, and they put them onto a website called faithandreason.com. They have the talks, but they also have little called insights. They're 3 to 4 minute little things boiled down to 3 or 4 minutes. And it's just a great resource for if you're looking for a little video to throw into a presentation, or you're looking for a quote on a topic really quickly, to be able to go and to find different, things from a lot of just experts out there. So, for example, they have a little snippet from Dr. Carrie Grass on Marian devotion, which is really nice. So when I was looking today for the thing on almsgiving, I went there, and I just think it's a really great resource. So I wanted to mention it to people. If they wanted to go to faithandreason.com, they can find a lot of these talks, both really short and longer, that can be helpful for them.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good stuff. I've watched some of the YouTube videos that Steubenville puts out, so I know there's some great stuff out there. So
yeah,
excellent.
They collect it all into that faithandreason.com website. So
very good.
Yeah.
Well, for my pick, I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to be a priest, and I'm just going to make an appeal on behalf of all my brother pastors, Catholic priests. Give to your parish. Seek how you can give to your parish. As Catholic priests, we are called to stewardship. We are called to using our time, talent, and treasure. That those things that we have. So talk to your priest, talk to your pastoral associate, whoever who is responsible for helping organize that, how you can help, whether it is, again, with your time, if you have time that you can give, with your talents. A lot of times parishes need things that you might not think of. Some of us, are somewhat techie, but a lot of people in parishes aren't. So if you have knowledge of doing, websites, if you have knowledge of setting up social media, if you have knowledge of running computer networks, talk to your pastor. He might need help with that. Other thing, you can imagine, there's so many things that we have for treasure or for talent that parishes might need, and the pastor might not even realize he needs it until you go talk to him. That sometimes happens. And then, of course, again, treasure. Parishes always need money. And if you're giving, thank you. If you're giving to your local parish, thank you. But I still encourage you, if you can give more, I can guarantee you your parish can use it. Very, very few parishes. I know of very few parishes that'll sit there and say, yeah, we've got more than enough money. Doesn't exist. So my pick this week is to do that appeal on behalf of priests throughout the country, because priests don't like to talk about money. We really don't. We don't want to stand up there and ask you for more money. But you know what? I guarantee you every priest needs to. And so I'm doing this on their behalf. Please do consider how you can be a good steward with what God has given you and give that back to the church through your local parish.
Way to take one for the team, Father Paul.
I'm starting to get more comfortable with it, whether I like it or not, So, Noelle, where can people find you?
Where can people find me? All over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at Hilltop Children's House, which is hilltopchildrenshouse.com. And we also at hilltopchildrenshouse@gmail.com. And then we are obviously on American Catholic History. Comes out every Monday. And great episode today, actually, by the way. It was really fun because I love Dominicans so much. And the priest we're talking about today, Father Samuel Mazzucchelli, is so Dominican. It was just so fun. I was laughing so much while we were you just could imagine him, with I lived in the DC area for a while, so all the Dominicans down at the Dominican House of Studies,
oh, sure.
see them and So American Catholic History on SQPN every Monday afternoon.
Oh, wonderful. And Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, check out CatholicMom.com. You can find me at LisaHendy.com or anywhere on social media at Lisa Hendy, which is HENDEY.
Excellent. And again, I'm Father Corey Stika. You can find my website where I post my homilies, frcorey.org, frcory.org. I'm on Facebook, Father Corey Stika. You can send us feedback for this episode of Let's Talk or any episode of Let's Talk to letstalk@sqpn.com, or again, comment on Facebook or YouTube. We'll find them there as well. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless.